Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mindset, Money, Success. And I'm your host, Loraine Marshall. And today's episode, I'm going to focus on money, but also it's overcoming money struggles. So, in this particular episode, it's a talk on money advice and budgeting and what to do if you've racked up a whole load of non-priority debt, such as credit cards or loans for things. So I know that this is a difficult period that we're going through because a lot of inflation around, isn't there? There's a lot of inflation and people are finding it a struggle just to get by because the money that they have coming in doesn't cover all of the things that they need to spend in order to actually survive. So this topic is very sort of useful for a lot of people, I would say. So I just want to say that I actually gave a talk about a couple of years ago now. I gave a live video talk in a private Facebook group, and that private Facebook group was for women who were healing from trauma of narcissistic abuse, psychological abuse, which includes financial abuse. So my background has been one where I did money advice when I worked for CAB, the Citizens Advice Bureau, a long time ago, because it was when I was living in the UK in the northeast of England. Now, I did train with the CAB, and so I learned a lot of useful things at that point. And money advice and dealing with debts was one of the things I learned. I also attended tribunals, helped people out in court. And the other thing that I did was help with welfare rights and benefits so that people who were struggling were pointed in the right direction in order to apply for the benefits that they could be entitled to help to boost their incomes. So at the moment, and for the last 9 years, I've actually been living in Spain. And there's a whole massive backstory about that as well. But I just want to, before I dive into the subject, is to give out a disclaimer. So I want to say that I'm not a financial advisor and I don't do any of this for a living either. And if you have complex financial issues, then you really need to seek some professional help with that. So like if you've got mortgage arrears or rent arrears and things, then you do really need to speak to a professional and seek help to get you out of that predicament. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain a method that I trained in, but also I created an acronym which I've used in the past, and this is called PIES, P-I-E-S. So what that stands for is Prioritise, that's P, priority expenses. I, which equals income, and that's trying all methods to increase income and listing out all forms of income. Then E, we've got expenditure, which is where your money disappears to, and then S is share of available income. So I'm going to walk you through what this all means, and it's basically what I was using to help people to get out of debt or manage it in a better way. So firstly, P, that's prioritizing. So let's get started on that. Um, Basically, it's listing down all of your expenses that are a priority, which means that rent, mortgage, council tax, all your utilities, any tax that you've got to pay, um, the roof over your head. It means keeping that, keeping your utilities on. So you need to identify all of your expenses, which are a priority. And this includes and a budget for your food allowance as well. Um, and maybe even your car or vehicle if you've got hire purchase, and transport is definitely a priority. If you need it on a regular basis for work, taking the kids to school, or if you live in the countryside. So you need to work out exactly what are priorities. Now, when you do this, there may be expenses that you find that are not really a priority, like a Netflix subscription or subscriptions to magazines, that you pile up in the corner and don't read. So all of the expenses that could be eliminated and that you can end a subscription for, then that's a good way to actually reduce what's going out of the door, what's going out of your income and in expenses. So that's prioritizing all of your expenditure. Now the second letter is I. Now this is the income side. So what you need to do is now list all of your income. Now that can be that anything that you get paid weekly, or anything that you get paid monthly, anything from benefits that you're entitled to. It could be from child benefits or extra top up on your earnings. Even if you've got like a maintenance payment from an ex-partner or something like that, then you need to list everything down that you receive in income. Now, the second part of income is to try and look at how you might increase that income. So there's lots of different things that you can think about. And what I used to say to people is that you can check to see if you're entitled to any welfare benefits that you're not claiming at the moment. And another thing is that if you're an employee and you are on pay as you earn, pay as you earn taxpayer, then you want to ensure that you are actually on the right tax code, and that you're not being overtaxed. And you want to especially find out if you're due any tax refund as well. If you are self-employed or run a small business, then it might be possible that you have paid too much tax and you could be due a lump sum back. So that might help you out. Another way of looking at increasing your income is think about some income earning opportunities that you can start relatively low cost and start to bring in a little bit more of income by word of mouth referrals through family and friends and things like that. Now, if you're a little bit entrepreneurial, which it's a good way to get started in increasing your income. Another method is if you are living in a property that has a spare room and it's your own home, and you can actually then look at renting a room out. Now, that can be a tax-free income because the rent a room scheme in the UK lets you earn up to 7,500 per year tax-free from letting out a furnished accommodation within your home. So that's a good way to increase your income, which is it's over £600 a month, so it's not bad. So you could rent a room to a student if you're in a university city, or you might want to rent to a professional if your property is near to a hospital or a big call centre, for example. And obviously, as I said, it's up to 7,500 as a tax-free income. Next, you could consider going through all of the items that you haven't used for a long time and then listing them for sale on a Facebook or eBay or some other platform where you can then sell them quickly and make a little bit of money in order to help you out. I mean, that could be anything. It could be old clothes, electrical items that are still working. It could be toys that your children no longer play with. So anything that is not being used that you could actually sell and make a bit of money on. And I'm sure there's lots of other ideas there. You might have some ideas yourself, which you could put in the comments. Now we move on to E. E is expenses. Now, this is non-priority expenses. This means things that not going to put you in prison if you don't pay them. Because these are not priorities, things like credit cards that you might be struggling with at the moment. It could be loans, but not if it's a higher purchase. That means something's going to be taken away if you don't pay it, like your car or other goods that you need, like kitchen equipment, an oven or whatever. So obviously you need to ensure with expenses that you're covering everything that you need in order to survive. So that includes your food, insurance that you might have, things like that. But you list down all of your other expenses that are not particularly priorities and are causing you a little bit of struggle. Now, if you discover, hopefully, that all of the income that you've got coming in on a weekly or a monthly basis covers all of the expenses that you've listed out, then that's a great place to be, because obviously you're not in a struggle and you're not as bad off as you think you were, because your income covers your priority and non-priority expenses. So if you've looked at increasing your income and you've looked at diversifying what you do, and you've looked at maybe changing your job to increase your income, and after you've done all of those things and listed out your income and your expenses, when you've done that exercise and your income doesn't cover all of your expenses, then this isn't a good place to be, because you're racking up debt every week and every month. So in this scenario, what you'd be thinking of is how you might scale down on your outgoings and expenses. You might need to look at a cheaper place to live, or if you can't increase your income, you've got to think about all the possibilities. You've got to get your head out of the sand and think about your future. So after looking for the higher paid job, or if you've looked at part-time work, you might need to do something different, because you can't keep going if you have expenses that are more than your income. So we've covered looking at the priority expenses. We've looked at how you might increase your income. I've listed out all your income. Now we need to look at the share option of how, if you've got available income, you actually share that among creditors. So, for example, you could have the money left over, you've got your income, you've sorted your expenses, but you've got a list of debts now. And so what we're moving on to is the S in this acronym. So you've got 2 or 3 credit cards, maybe a loan or something, which aren't priority, and you are now looking to find a way to reduce that with whatever money you have available. So what you do is you find the pro-rata amount from whatever you have available. For example, say if you've got £300 of available income after you've done all of the homework on your income and expenditure, you take your total of debts outstanding and you divide available income divided by total debt outstanding, which equals usually a figure that works at 0.0 and then say 169 or 240, which is your pro rata per pound amount that you can use in order to share the leftover income to your creditors. Now, for example, when I did this talk to the group, I mentioned a sum of money, which is debts of 12,500. And with that calculation, if of 300 a month available and 12,500 in debts, the per pound pro rata payment is 0.024. So if the first debt is 10,000, then what you do is you multiply that by 0.024. So 10,000 times 0.024 is £240. So that's £240 of the 300 that you've got available, and that's for your first creditor, the offer that you will make. Okay. Then you take the second debt, which in this scenario, I'm taking it as 1,800, and it's to a different creditor. So you do that calculation again, 0.024 times 1,800. Now that's £44 a month. And that is the offer that you will make for that particular creditor. Now, the other outstanding debt, a third debt to a creditor, is 500. So you do the same calculation. Now, that particular creditor would end up with an offer of £12 a month, and the final debt is 200 loan, and that would get an offer of £4 a month. Now, obviously, there's a disclaimer here. Suppose that you've got a really good credit score at the moment, and when you start to write these types of letters to creditors to say, I'm struggling, I don't have enough income at the moment, something's gone wrong, this has happened, and I need to restructure. The creditor will mark your credit records to say that you're making reduced payments. But it's not the end of the world. The point is, it just means that your record will not be perfect. And this is basically the simplest way to deal with the non-priority creditors, because what you need to be looking at is just to write out a standard letter, put your list of your income and the list of your expenditures and show what money you have available. Then list all the creditors that you have in a numbered list, 1, 2, 3, 4, and what outstanding balance you have with each creditor. Then you make that offer to each one based on the per pound pro rata calculation that you've done. Then that letter gets sent out to every creditor so that they can see your situation clearly and they can either accept or reject the offer that you've made. Now, letters are the easiest form. Obviously, it keeps a record of everything that's going on. Now, I would say 9 times out of 10, if you're taking your head out the sand and if you've done your homework and you've got everything in order and you've shown creditors that you're willing to make payments, then 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. And they'll start accepting whatever offer that you make. Now, you can explain to them that this is a temporary situation, that things can improve within a certain time, and you can revisit the situation in 3 months or 6 months or whatever. So that's the simplest way to do this. Now, with credit cards, it's a revolving credit, which means that interest is always added every month. So if you've got a credit card and you are paying a lower amount or a lesser amount, the debt isn't going to reduce. It's still going to be racking up. So you need to be asking to freeze the rate of interest, to freeze the interest payments on that outstanding debt, so that any offer that you are making actually reduces the debt, instead of increasing it with the interest added. Now, if you're confident, right, you can call your creditors, make a list of the creditors, do all your homework. They might ask you to email them some details of your income and expenditure, but if you can do that and you can make phone calls, what I always say is to have a notepad and a pen and keep a record of when you've called, the date that you've called, and even ask who you've spoken to, so that you've got a record. And for example, it's like, I rang this company on this date, I spoke with, and it was agreed, whatever is agreed, that you pay at that time, so that you're making a different payment to the agreed payment. So always keep a record of what's going on. Now, these letters, sample letters, are available all over the internet. If you just Google, and you probably find them, you can copy them or download them, model letters, you probably find them on a CAB website, so that you can use that model letter to write to your creditors. Now, something else that I want to talk about, which was part of my talk in this private group, is coerced debts and coerced loan agreements. It's something that sometimes happens. It includes people like myself who've been in relationship with guys who might have used manipulation tactics and may have coerced you into signing financial agreements that you didn't really want to sign. You could end up with debts in your name because the person didn't have a good credit record, which can happen. I've done it myself. I've been there and got the T-shirt. But now the law is changing. And for me, it was a long time ago. There were no laws. So I had to figure a way out for myself, which I did. It took a long time. I mean, it's 7 years to repair a credit record, but I did it. And I managed to buy a house back in Sunderland a long time ago. So I repaired my credit record. Now, if an ex-partner or a spouse or a boyfriend has gotten you into financial difficulties and you've signed for things that you didn't really want to sign for, now that is now called economic or financial abuse. It's domestic abuse, and more banks and credit card companies are becoming informed about this. An organisation that you might have heard of is called SEA, which is SEA, and it stands for Surviving Economic Abuse. You can find them on Facebook and Twitter, and if you Google Surviving Economic Abuse, the website will come up there as well. What that organisation is doing is raising awareness within financial organisations and government and helping to change the legislation so that financial abuse and economic abuse are starting to be recognised now, and that women who get into this situation with abusive partners can get some remedies. SEA don't work one-to-one with victims or survivors, but you can get the information from the internet and get help from various organisations. So when you're calling in to speak to banks or credit cards or loan companies, if you actually say to them what the situation is, then quite often they have a specialist advisor who can help you. So I believe it's called the vulnerable customer support. So if you phone in or you want it, or you're writing and in that situation of coerced debts, I would ask them if they have a vulnerable customer support. And if they do, then they will know what you mean by that. So you could get more assistance and support with what you want to tell them. And with your permission, they'll keep any communication on file. So if you need to call back or get back in touch, you don't have to start at the beginning or explain anything that's happened over and over, which can be quite traumatic. Because I know what it's like. Another helpful support that I would signpost is the Citizens Advice Bureau, because that is the organisation I worked with a long time back. You can Google that and you'll probably find the CAB website where they've got advice on what to do with all sorts of money struggles, and they've got the debt sample letters there as well that you can model and send to the creditors. So my advice here is to tackle your financial struggles yourself. It's not difficult unless you've got a complex situation. If it's straightforward, you could do it yourself. I advise against going with any organisation that offers help but involves fees, where there's a percentage of your payment that goes to them for administration purpose. And for me, I don't think that's right. And if you can do it yourself, then all of the money that you have available as income is going toward the debt. So dealing with creditors is not difficult once you know where you are with your finances, your income, your expenses. You've identified your priorities and got those covered. So you're not in danger of losing your house or getting your utilities cut off. That's a good place to be. And then you just need to work out how you're going to manage the other expenses, which I've been through with all the explanations about increasing your income, reducing your expenses, and then creating a budget based on the method that I've just explained. One thing that I've missed out when we're talking about coerced debt and debts that you've racked up because of another person, or where you're not in a position to think about a long-term repayment plan, is getting debts written off. So if you've signed up for something that you didn't want and you can prove that it wasn't for you because you're never going to ride that motorbike that you signed up for, and I do know women that have been coerced into buying all sorts of things. So I've heard stories of a guy that wanted a boat, and this woman signed for one, and that caused massive problems for her in the future. Because there wasn't any economic abuse laws when she did that. So this was my talk on money struggles a couple of years ago. And I do hope that it's been useful for everyone. And before I finish up, I just want to tell you about a zero cost, no commitment private support community on Facebook. I set up this group under my brand, Success with Loraine. It's still a work in progress because I'm still rebuilding my life. It's a private, safe space for women aged 40 plus to connect, heal, and grow from trauma to transformation. The theme is master your mindset, multiply your money, maximize your success. Now, if this resonates with you and you want to join me in this private group, then I'll put the link in the show notes and in the description underneath this video. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the group. Bye for now.